Welcome back. How's it going?
It has been a couple of crazy weeks. I don't know about you, but has it been a full moon? Maybe it has.
I don't know if it's a full moon or what. I can't figure out if I am coming or going, honestly.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'll drink to that.
Absolutely. Hey, introvert's life, always busy. So, should we start with the drink of the episode?
What are we drinking here? This is really good.
Well, I figured in honor of my Southern heritage, we would try the good classic Southern mint julep.
Oh, I love it. This is especially good.
Well, thank you. It's the first time I've made them. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. So today we're trying out, a good friend of mine from college raved about this. So the 1792 single barrel.
Ooh.
Very smooth.
Well, this is very nice mint julep. So cheers.
We should definitely talk about business, but perhaps we should start with introductions.
I'm Karen Sullivan, founder of Sullivan Solutions and marketing from the C-suite. Here to keep your brand real.
Hey, love keeping it real. I'm Shay Nelson, MSN Law Office, here to make sure that all the legal stuff doesn't come back to bite you as you're doing whatever it is that you're passionate about in business. So today, Karen, I thought we would talk about something that I think is very close to home for both of us. As an introvert, how do you go out and network without driving yourself crazy and without being fake?
That is maybe one of the hardest questions. I went through a large part of my professional life not networking. I was fortunate enough to work as much as I wanted for a few key clients and could talk on their behalf, but the actual networking and building up, these clients had their own staffs, so I didn't have to build professional trust advisors. And the first time I went out truly networking in a crowd, I believe I drugged my sister along with me.
Fair enough.
How about you?
I hear from a lot of introverts who are like, I can't go unless I'm bringing somebody I know with me, or I have a drink, little liquid courage to get things started. That is a tough one. It's funny because even though we're introverts, we both met, I think, at like my first NAWBO Columbus event.
That was NAWBO was a very good opportunity for me. And it was a group of women who were going to get me out of my shell, whether I wanted to or not. I think we've had some conversations about that. But if I remember correctly, yes, it was your first meeting. You were the person in the room that looked the most different than me. And I considered it my responsibility. I was on the board, and I am a very strong advocate for NAWBO. Always was, still am. That was why we were there. So then we set up a coffee meeting. Hey, you want to grab a coffee, get to know each other? I'd like to learn more about your business. I'm not sure I really wanted to know more about your business.
Because you meet a lawyer, you meet a financial advisor, maybe insurance. You really don't want to do this. But I guess if you're on the board, you feel a little more obligated.
And I hate to use that as an excuse, but I did. It made me feel more obligated. But it was the best thing in the world for me as an introvert to have that obligation, because it did give me the push I needed to make that ask. And we met for coffee, and then kind of the rest is history. But sometimes I like to say getting out there and meeting people almost feels like play acting. I don't mean play, but I mean, more, you got to fake it till you make it.
Absolutely. I mean, we literally use that as an expression on my college mock trial team. I can hear the coach to this day, fake it till you make it, because if nothing else, we were going to find a way to get through it. And I think as an introvert, sometimes you do have to take that and just run with it. For me, when I first showed up at NAWBO, I had just started my law firm. I knew I needed to get out and meet people. I knew that was going to be a part of until I built a client base. And so I was very intentional about, let me at least find 2 or 3 good groups I can get involved in, not try to force too much, but at least put myself out there. And I would go in with okay, meet 2 people, right? Get 2 business cards, set up a couple coffees. And if you're miserable, okay, fine, you're done, right?
Exactly.
So having just almost making it a game or having some rules for yourself of okay, I'm going to go do this. And if I can just meet a couple new people I don't know, and if I'm still having a terrible time, I can get out of here.
Another analogy is it's kind of like shopping. And granted, I probably like shopping less as I get older, but...
Well, with the internet, who wants to shop in person?
Exactly. But to that point, actually, there have been, and we learned this in COVID, some people totally hated the online networking. I don't have a problem with it.
Really?
If I can drink my own coffee, sit in my own office, and have a good conversation with someone who's comfortable on a Zoom meeting, I've had some great networking conversations that way. It works very well for me, the introvert.
You know, what's really surprised me is that as we came out of the pandemic, I've gotten so sick of having Zoom meetings. Like, I actually missed the in-person interaction.
I can see that.
But one thing I've learned about being an introvert is I like the one-on-one stuff. I think that feels better for most introverts. It's the big group setting. Early on, I would go to some of the business first stuff, or even I was a little bit younger, so the Columbus Young Professional stuff.
Right.
These are 7 a.m. coffee things with 100, 200 people in a giant space. And I was just I'm not a morning person. I hate coffee. I barely know my own name. And there's just so many people here that it's just impossible to actually make a connection with anybody.
Yeah.
Those were pretty miserable. So I was glad to get rid of those as quickly as I could.
I think that's exactly right. You got to try on a few things, kiss a few frogs to find out what really works for you. Some people seem to do really well at those. I don't get it.
Yeah.
It has never really worked for me. I like to go and see who's there. And over time, there's almost always somebody at one of those big events that I know. So I'm old enough that I'm never on my own necessarily. but yeah, that is work. I think what you said about set a couple of goals for yourself, whether it's meet 1 person, meet 2 people, get a couple of business cards. In my opinion, that's still the best way. The business cards, in my mind, and I'm old fashioned, I get that, but they're cheap, they're easy, everybody understands them, and you can play them like cards. So I get back to the office, I can scan them all on one sheet, do whatever, but I know this is what came from this meeting. I know where I met these people. And if they go directly into my contacts, a lot of times I don't take time to say where I met them, so they just kind of filter. So I'm a big fan of the business cards. But yeah, you can't exchange business cards. You can't have those one-on-one Zoom meetings unless you've been out there one-to-one or out there networking.
Yeah, and I think a mistake a lot of people make with that is they force themselves to go, right? Because we're introverts, we didn't want to be there. We collect the business cards because everybody told us that's what we were supposed to do. And then we don't do anything with them. And the one thing I figured out very quickly was this does not work unless you actually follow up with people. So whether that's paying for a CRM or setting a reminder, setting your emails to, hey, bug me about this email in 3 months or whatever the follow-up might be, is the only way doing that actually makes a difference.
Yeah. Do you typically follow up pretty directly after you've met somebody? What's your playbook look like on that?
In the early days, I think I was much better about it. I've probably gotten a little too lax as I get a little comfortable and I've got a steady client base now. But in the early days, I was pretty good about send that follow-up email. Hey, it was so good to meet you at such and such an event. I'd love to hear more about what it is that you do. Can we grab some time? And at the time, it was coffee, lunch, happy hour, whatever. Now you go to my scheduling and I'm like, I don't drink coffee. I don't do mornings. So happy hour, lunch, and really doing that. And then if it seemed like somebody that was a potential referral source or a potential client, even if it wasn't right now, then I would set a reminder for, okay, follow up with this person every 3 months or every 6 months or something like that, just to check in, see how things are going, try to maintain that relationship. It could be something as simple as, hey, I'm getting ready to go to this event. Are you interested? Or, hey, I hadn't talked to you in a little while. You want to catch up, grab lunch or something? And doing that over time but being genuine.
Right.
And I think this is one thing where maybe introverts are a little bit better about it than extroverts, is just focusing on getting to know people and let a relationship develop naturally, as opposed to, hey, Karen, I'm an attorney. I'd love to get your business. You want to sit down and talk about the legal services I can provide you? No, nobody wants to respond to that. I can tell you for a fact, nobody at NAWBO or any other event would have been like, yeah, sure, let's.
Yeah, nobody stands up and does that. And I think being a part of the organization and getting really genuinely involved in the organization gives you an excuse to have a conversation about something other than your business.
Yeah.
And that I found was always useful, because I could sit down and have a conversation with somebody, and I wasn't afraid to twist their arm to join NAWBO. Again, here's all the benefits, here's all the good things. Take as much or little as you want. That was a good conversation. That was delivering some value for that person. Whether that was really a good fit or not, typically if that's where I met them, they were there because they wanted information, and I could provide that, and also learn about their business. That's another key element. It's tried and true from back in the dark ages. First thing you do is ask somebody about themselves, right? And that's, as an introvert, I found that hard to do, but I made a point to learn from people I was networking with. So if I went to a seminar or a conference or whatever, and I did go with an extroverted person, and I did that a lot for several years, and I was intimidated at first, but boy, I learned a lot, because you can say almost anything. The key is to keep the conversation going and to show genuine interest and just get to know the person. You don't have to extract anything out of it. You do want to make it meaningful.
Yeah.
But practice does help.
Yeah, I always found it helpful to have a go-to question for when the conversation seemed to break up or kind of fall apart a little bit. Because you go to these networking events and it's just like, hey, who are you? Okay, great. What do you do? That's awesome. I do such and such. Now what, right?
Right.
And so then I would kind of follow up with something to the effect of, so what do you like to do when you're not working or not doing the networking?
Oh, that's a
thing,
good one.
right?
That's a very good one.
Because it's a very easy way to show interest in another person and let them talk about something
Absolutely.
that everybody else at the event is asking about. Okay, tell me about your business. Here's what I do in my business. You want to exchange business cards? So it's like, it gives you something a little bit different just to say, all right, now are you actually an interesting person that I want to follow up with? Right? Everybody has a hobby of some sort, right?
Right.
You've got the kids, a dog, a cat, something you like to do besides work, I hope.
Well, that's actually almost a no-fail kind of question, because either it's something you know about, so it's something you have in common and you can talk about it,
Right.
or it's something you don't know anything about. So, oh, great, lots more questions. And that's lots more easy questions to let them go on and on. So
Yeah.
that's a good one. My son's got one that I have never had the nerve to try, but he makes a point of asking someone he's met for the first time, what was the best thing that happened to you last week?
Oh my, that might be a tough one.
Well, first of all, if really, and this is pro tip here, if it's really that hard, just make something up. This is the first time you've met this person. They don't know what you did last week. And if you can't come up with something, I mean, it is open. You know, what was the best thing? So you can, even if you respond like you did, it's an icebreaker. And I love that about him, and some of the questions he asked, but I haven't quite had the nerve to do that yet.
But I think that's the point, though, is having the icebreaker questions just to kind of lighten the mood, show a little interest in another person. Maybe you learn something new you didn't know about. Maybe you actually make a legitimate friend, right? And not just a business networking, whatever. The other one I like, though, is because if you think about the fact that you're at a networking event, like, people aren't there to be like, ew, why are you talking to me?
Well,
So if you just walk up to an odd group of people, like a group of three, because somebody's kind of standing there with their drink, just being the odd man out of the conversation,
yes.
inevitably people are going to go, okay, yeah, sure, join us. What do you do? Like, I mean, people, especially extroverts, they just can't help themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it took a little bit of time to learn that, but you are so right. And sometimes that's the most fun. I look for somebody who's standing off by themselves and
Yeah.
oh, first time, don't know anybody, get off your phone, talk to me. Whatever. Pull them out a little bit. Make a game out of it.
And that gets back to that whole fake it till you make it, because chances are they're standing there feeling awkward just like you were when you walked in.
Yeah.
And having somebody walk up to them and be like, it's no big deal. We've all been there before.
Right. That's fair. And I think I definitely, I still put some goals on a situation like that. I want to get 2 contacts. I want to have 2 or 3 good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's up to me, to do that. Not all of them are going to be longtime friends in the making, but that's okay. And I think especially, that's one of the great things about the Midwest. People are friendly, people are helpful. And I found Columbus in particular has been really, really good about that. So if you lean into your introversion and let that prevent you from meeting some of the wonderful people that are out there, that's your loss.
Yeah. No, as a Southern transplant, that Midwest nice really is a thing.
Yeah.
But I think the flip side of this conversation, and we'll probably have to talk about this more in the business context as well, but as an introvert, like recognizing that and setting a little bit of a boundary. So I very quickly figured out that there were only so many networking events I could go to in 1 week.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there had to be a break where I was just like, all right. So even now,
and it's a very, very small number.
Yeah. But even now, to this day, I will do meetings Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday's a quiet day. I'll do some meetings again on Thursday. Friday's a quiet day. Because I just know myself, and I know that if I don't have that, if I open up my calendar and say, pick any day of the week you want and have meetings all week long, I would drive myself insane.
That's real. And I think that was something else I had to learn by observing other people. I wasn't smart enough to know about doing that on my own, setting those schedules and boundaries. But I had to see other people do it and realize, oh, that is okay. I don't have to be available every time they want to make a phone call or get together. No, we can manage this and manage it in a positive way. And I've seen a lot of people treat it differently. Some do the days like you do, or the hours, and restrict what you're open for.
Yeah.
It's also hard in businesses like ours because I pride myself on being available to my clients too. And I really struggle with that. So that open calendar, it doesn't work so well sometimes. But yeah, it's manageable. I have found the online calendar works really well for me because I do not like the back and forth of, well, when are you available? No, that doesn't work for me. And I have to do this. And then my calendar changes. No, just put it in my calendar. Here's when I'm willing to be, and especially for the networking. Here's when I'm willing to be available.
Yeah.
And let's not make it a bad experience before we get there. And I would say that we'll say that people are worth it. The relationship or the pursuit of the pursuit of the relationship might not be.
That is fair. And if they annoy you enough just leading up to the first coffee or whatever, it's almost like a bad first date. You're like, do I even want to bother at this point?
Yeah, true that. But that begs the question, how much networking can you do? Well, do you say yes to everybody who asks for a little bit of your time?
In the beginning, I did. Not anymore. Maybe I shouldn't admit this on camera, but financial planners are the one where I'm just like, nope, been burned too many times. We're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, we're just not going to do it. I don't know what it is in that industry where they're just so bound to deter, because they're not there to talk. here's what my business does, and here's how I might be able to help your clients, and here's why I'm different. They're always trying to sell you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I've met several dozen of you. Like, I'm not interested, right? Like, or you already have one, whatever the case might be. But it's just like that particular industry, their sales tactics to me could be so annoying. But that's the one where I just, not anymore.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I think I'd love to hear how some financial planners feel about that being kind of collared with that stereotype, because it is hard.
Yeah.
And granted, I'd like to sell everybody I have coffee with too, but sometimes selling the business isn't the most important thing that can come out of that conversation. And I certainly don't want to work with anybody I don't know. So no matter what you're selling, you're not. In fact, I'll come out of the gate and just say, I don't say yes on the telephone. Well, I don't answer the phone.
As an introvert, hiring an answering service was one of the best things I ever did.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I don't say yes on the phone. If you really want to commit, let's pull out the calendar right now. And I think that's the most meaningful networking is you're in a good conversation. Well, do you want to pick this up next week over drinks or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Get your calendar out right then. Let's schedule it. And that can be annoying, especially for people who don't talk and process very well like I do. So it takes me a little longer, but that's the best way to get that commitment when the conversation's hot and heavy. I feel like if you're already interested, let's get something on books.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah. And I think some of it is realizing you can't be everything to everybody.
No.
Right. And getting comfortable with that. And it's harder when you're first launching your business because obviously I tell clients all the time or new prospects all the time. You come into the office and I'm like, I don't care what kind of business you're starting. Congratulations, your new job is marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So you do feel a little bit of pressure to have every coffee, meet with everybody, right? Try to build relationships with everyone. And as an introvert, that can be especially overwhelming. And so recognizing that, there's some people that for no apparent reason, you'll just click with.
Yeah.
And you'll build those relationships and it will come together in time as long as you're a bit consistent about it. And I think that's why I go back to finding a couple of organizations that you can really get involved in. Because, as introverts, we're not great at the whole giant room, convention center full of people, but go volunteer, sit on the board, right? Find yourself a position, show that you're a consistent person,
Absolutely.
show up on time, you do good work, and oh, by the way, you happen to be an expert in X.
Exactly. I'm actually a really big fan of that methodology because it gives me an opportunity to demonstrate what I'm an expert in. And I suffer from the same problem, call it that every small business owner, it's really hard to talk about myself. It's kind of surprising that we're here, but I think that's why we're here, because we both say the same thing, and we've talked about that so many times. There's not one answer, but you find where you can roll up your sleeves and you dig in, and show what you can do, and that pays off.
Yeah. And you just kind of have to trust the process a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it does pay off, but you also have to play to your strengths as an introvert. Like I said, not trying to be everything to everybody. There's one book I always recommend to fellow introverts, and it's a book called Quiet. Because the author really talks about those misconceptions of introverts as like, we're just anti-people. And it's
Right.
like, no, we just don't like small talk and pettiness and BS, right?
Yeah,
But if you get us on a topic that we're really passionate about, you can't shut us up.
exactly.
It's two introverts to a
Right.
podcast, right? And so it can work, but you have to pick and choose your battles.
I'll come back to the acting, the element of acting. Sometimes having the conversation, I'm not advocating dishonesty per se, but it's not a high stakes conversation. So it doesn't, not every, especially initial conversations where you're trying to get to know somebody, not everything has to be a deep conversation.
Right.
You can keep it light. you don't have to pour yourself into it, and you can dip your toe in the water, and that it took me a long time to kind of get comfortable dipping my toe in the water to see where I wanted that conversation to go.
Well, and I know neither of us is single, but talking to some of my single friends, I think kind of having a pre-planned out if things are just really going that horribly, or if you're just afraid that they will, I think kind of set people's mind at ease a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you could always have I've got the 10 o'clock coming up. I'm going to have to get out of here.
Exactly.
Just something to help you kind of, all right, this is done. Let me wrap up this conversation.
And that's something else that I think has kind of helped. You said, yeah, it's 2026 technology, all that. Even if you're meeting offline, you're meeting in a coffee house, or you're meeting in somebody's office, or having dinner, whatever that connection needs to be, we've gotten really good at making sure it's on the calendar. Okay,
Yeah.
Are you sending me an invitation, or am I sending you one? Get that clear and get it on the calendar. Because guess what? It's not just putting the start time on the calendar, you're putting the end time on the calendar too. And so that subtly sets some expectations on how long you really expect to be committed to this conversation, and stick to it. Now, if more needs to be said, you can mutually agree to extend it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're having a great time, order another round, carry on. Right?
Yeah, and that's something else I've done on my Calendly link, is kind of teed it up so that you can see it's a 30-minute slot. And if you give me a warning and I know what you're calling about, and that's something else, what am I getting out of this conversation? I need to know what the conversation's about.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of our extroverted friends, don't always realize that.
Yeah.
Like, introverts could use a little bit of prep beforehand. Like, I don't want to go in blind. Like when I talked about the financial planners, like I don't want to go in and suddenly I get slapped with, well, let's talk about your retirement plan. It's like, that's not what I was here for, right? And I know I'm picking on the financial planners a little bit, but I fully recognize that attorneys also get lumped into that boat. I think used car salesmen are right in that boat too.
Yeah.
So I'm not just picking on one industry. I get it. But yeah, I mean, one of my rules for going to networking events was, are there going to be the type of people that I think I want to meet? Is there something I could learn from this event? Or would this be a great event to kind of go and introduce people or bring a client or something like that along to? And if I could check 2 out of those 3, then I felt like it was going to be worth the registration fee, worth the time, right? Worth the effort and the mental energy to get up and go.
Right.
But if it was just some random person says this is a cool thing to go to, I'm like, it doesn't sound that interesting to me. I don't know that my target market is necessarily going to be there.
Right. You got to be clear on what you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about really nailing in an expected agenda? Do you expect to know what you're going to talk about? Or do you, when you're asking for a meeting, do you say, here's what I expect to get out of this meeting?
Now, I've had a lot of people ask me that in a networking meeting. I am not quite that rigid for networking meetings. And we'll probably talk about this more in a future episode, but I am getting to be that rigid about initial consultations. Because I still I've been experimenting with both like free or complimentary and a paid version.
Right.
And so I have gotten a lot more rigid about here's what the agenda is for that free consultation.
Right.
To try to weed out, like I don't mind giving people good information, basic information, but at some point you got to weed out some of the tire kickers, right?
Right.
But for networking events, not so much, or for that one-on-one kind of follow-up. But I'm usually trying to get to know you, trying to get to know a little bit about your business, your services, being very conscious of how attorneys can come off. I try to phrase it, hey, I'm not necessarily here to sell you, right? But my job is to be a resource for my small business and nonprofit clients. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you serve that audience. Do I need to put you on my referral list? Right.
Oh, that's a good way to handle that.
It's a good way of like hopefully subtly suggesting like I'm not here to sell you.
Right.
I don't want you to turn around and try to sell me either.
Right.
And if you miss that subtlety, maybe we're just not the great, people to work together.
Right.
And then, like I said, going back to trying to get a little bit of that personal, because I think that's where you build more of a connection, right? It's like, so what else is going on in your life besides, 'cause most of the time I'm talking to other business owners. What else is going on in your life besides running the business, right? Or in the early
Small
days,
business, not much.
there's something else weighing on
Exactly.
you, right?
Exactly.
Or in the early days, what other kind of networking things do you do? What other marketing things are you doing? What's working for you? Like, let's trade some tips, right?
That's a good one.
Is this somebody that you want to get to know a little bit better? Or like I said, is this one a dud? You're like, well, I'll send my sort of default, hey, how's it going? It's been a few months since I talked to you email. Or is there somebody here where I want to personalize it a little bit more?
Right. Yeah, I think what you're alluding to is you go to the networking to discover potential relationships that are going to deliver value.
Right.
It's a two-way street. You want to feel like you're delivering value to the relationship. You want to get value out of it. And nobody who goes to these things is ashamed of that. That's why you do it. That's why somebody sponsors the drinks and to facilitate that.
But at the same time, my pet peeve, the value that's being delivered may or may not be today.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I remember in the early days, I would have people, and towards the end of the conversation would inevitably be, well, are there any clients you could refer me to? Anybody that comes to mind? It's just like, right now, on the top of my head, I just met you, right?
That might be the worst thing to ask an introvert. Yeah, you can have some of my time, but who do you know? You can... Yeah.
Well, it's the first date analogy, right? Too much for a first date, right?
Exactly.
So when people don't do that, right, understanding that building that value is a long game,
Yeah.
right? I think we're both the kind of people that even if we get referred to a potential client, I tell people I want to be your business attorney for the life of your business. I'm not just here for the one contract. You're not just there for the one website or whatever it might be, right? And so I think the same thing applies in networking. You're not just here for what can you give me today and what can I give you in exchange. And that's why I never did like I never got involved like the Amway type groups.
Oh,
where it was like
Spirit.
Am Spirit, where every time you show up at a meeting, you're supposed to bring so many potential clients or referrals for people. And I'm like, it's just not how life works. At least not to me.
Yeah. No, it isn't. I will say I did a couple of years in BNI, which is very similar. And you have to ask yourself what you want to get out of it. So first of all, it was not a good fit in terms of I sell to other businesses. Mm-hmm. And this particular chapter was very realtors and people that realtors use. And
very B2C.
They're very B2C. Not a problem. What it did teach me, because not only do you have to show up with referrals or some referrals over time, you have to show up every single week and give a pitch.
Oh, wow. So you got to really work on that elevator speed.
I personally am more of a consultant. And when you tell somebody you're a problem solver, well, that's really ambiguous. I know it is, because the problems I solve don't all fit into the same bucket.
Right.
So that's always been a struggle for me. BNI forced me to get up, and I think it was a 30-second commercial every time.
Okay.
Whatever it was very short, and somebody's got the timer going on here, right? And then you'd have to do a presentation on rotation, depending on how big the chapter was, so a couple of times a year. That actually was really good for me.
I've heard of like groups like Toastmaster being really good for some introverts as well, especially if you're terrified of public speaking. It really helps you to kind of like, it forces you to get up on your feet and kind of learn that skill.
Yeah.
And get to a point where you can be a little bit more comfortable with it. But speaking of comfort, I wanted to ask, what do you think of like the affinity groups? Like NAWBO, or like at one point, I was pretty actively involved. We've got an African American Bar Association here. Right. But sometimes I think as an introvert, those affinity groups can make it a little bit more comfortable.
So let's be clear. You're talking about people who look more like you, or look
Or
more
have
like me, or have something in
have
common.
that something in common.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Not just like, oh, we're all business owners.
correct. I think you almost have to, because otherwise, there's where are you starting?
Yeah.
It's a big world out there. If you don't start, if you are just starting, I think it helps a lot to have somebody that you can connect with on some level, right?
Yeah. Because I think like the difference between walking into NAWBO versus like the Columbus Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
like even I've noticed that men just network a little bit differently.
Oh, they absolutely do. Oh, let me tell you a story about that. So during my time at NAWBO, one of the women I met networking, what at the time was the administrative coordinator for a group in Columbus called ACG, which is
Okay.
Association of
It's like corporate governance or
something like that.
okay.
Yeah, my bad, because I'm talking off the cuff, and this is what I fear as an introvert, is I won't remember what that acronym stands for. But anyway, so we got to networking, had a lot in common. We still work together to this day. A lot of good stuff. I'm with NAWBO, you're with ACG. Why don't we those connect more, right? Because NAWBO, women business owners, okay, we get that. ACG, and I've been to a few of their meetings. It is all the bankers, lawyers, mergers and acquisitions. Everybody shows, mostly men, show up in a suit and tie, right? Very different. So we thought, let's have a combination networking event. And we did. We were at Sciota Country Club. Had a really good turnout.
Okay.
It was like junior high dance. I kid you not. All the women were on one end of the room, all the men were on the other.
That is ridiculous that people are still doing that.
It was so pronounced.
Wow.
And this is a while ago, but it was just funny. But I think that answers your point. You want to know that you have some affinity,
Yeah.
not just. I mean, it made perfect sense to me to mix the group because
Yeah. On paper, it sounds like a great
it
idea.
really, really does. But it wasn't a one and done kind of thing. It wasn't going to happen in one. It was going to happen on the first date, and it sure didn't. But we tried. God love us.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's a really good place to start. It's a good place to always feel comfortable, even if you stick your neck out in some other areas. It's always good to have your tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets you started, right? But don't, to our point where we
Right.
open that, right? It's like, don't be afraid to walk up to the person that looks nothing like you, right? And
Yeah.
figure out, like, on paper, we don't have anything but in common. Let's figure out what we do have in common because there's something, right? If you show interest, there's something.
Even if it's just what got you here.
Yeah.
How did you hear about this? And it's all good. I will say, depending on the length of the event, if I go to a 1, 2, 3 day conference, for example, where I'm networking, first of all, I have to know exactly why I'm there. I have to have, what am I going to get out of this? But when I'm done, I'm toast.
Yeah,
I'm toast.
at the time of recording, I just got back in town. One of my nonprofit clients had me come and speak at their conference. And so I had just a 30-minute presentation in the morning, but then as soon as that was done, they have like chapters all over the country. And so it was back-to-back 15-minute consultations with each chapter. And so by the time 5:30 rolled around, I had absolutely nothing left in the tank. And the next day, I was good for absolutely no one.
Yeah.
And there are times when I've had to learn in the course of running this business that when you get to that point as an introvert, that battery is dead. You are better off for both yourself and your clients just saying, I can't do it today, than trying to force it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that because it is absolutely real. And I have found, again, back to the acting, I have found I can change my mindset and I can pretend to be an extrovert for a while. I really can, but it's painful.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
Not at the time, it's painful later.
Yeah. On that note, do you have one for the road for our listeners? I know this isn't the usual, here are all the legal takeaways and the marketing takeaways, so here's your safety net and slingshot, but...
So I'm supposed to be the slingshot, and it's going to sound like the safety net, but I'm going to be the one to say, just do it. Either find somebody to go with you a few times, find somebody that you can mimic or emulate.
Yeah.
Find somebody who will drag you kicking and screaming and talk for you. Get involved and demonstrate what you can do, and realize that it's just another one of those hats you wear as a business owner. And sometimes you have to put on your extrovert hat to get what you need for the business. It might not be what you want today, but to be involved, be part of the community. And that's one of the beauties I think about. That's one of the strongest things about a small business is you're part of the community. You're contributing to the greater good, and you have to be part of the community. So figure out how you can do it. Ask questions until something feels right. And there is no such thing as a stupid question.
Hey, that's a great one. I think those are great slingshots.
Just
cheers to it until you make it.
Absolutely.
Look, I need another refill anyway.
I think it's time to wrap this up.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Executive Poor Podcast. Make sure you check out the show notes on executivepoorpodcast.com. And make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and tell all your friends to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, even on YouTube. Check out the video versions. And you can find us on social media as well. Until next time, the bar is open.
Okay.